but as all of us are aware, said that the consequences of COVID-19 are really very painful for students. We are also, there are indications that the COVID-19 impact is going to cast long shadow among students, and this could have a long-term impact on the students. And because COVID-19 actually, there was as soon as this pandemic happened, there was a sudden shutdown of the campuses. Everybody moved to remote learning. But all of these led to rising anxiety and depression among students for sure. What is this? My first question is to you, Professor Ansari. Sir, what, in your opinion, what has been the impact on students on this sudden movement to remote learning, which was not perceived?
Actually, this is something which has happened not in India only, is something which is very unique, but throughout the world. And not only that, none of the countries in the world had expected to have such type of a situation. And for every issues, and this education is concerned, this is the issue which is related with the parents as well as the students. So we can say that this issue is something which has been affecting each and every population throughout the world, no matter what the age it is, and schools and colleges, so and so forth. So here what we find that when we say that there is a closure, the word closure itself is having an impact in the life. And when we say the closure of the group who is the future of the country, then that means we are completely closing the hope of something which is going to affect in the future for the development of the nations. So here, when we say the impact here, the impact is not related only to the education area, but it is the impact of something which in every part or every area of the countries, whether it is in the area of the education area, whether it is in the area of the economic area, whether it is area of something which is having overall development of the nation is concerned. With country like in India, the government focus is to giving education to the every corner of the countries, and more focus is for the economically backward group of the people in the various form and economic incentives or midday meal or the scholarships or reservations, so on and so forth. But what we find that this closure has given a maximum impact of this group, which was being the focus of the country, maximum impact. The higher elite groups was having some type of access of the technology in the different means, and that was being now used for the education purposes. In the same way as the education institution is concerned, those institutions which was basically based on the government help, those institutions was not neither prepared in the future, not having in the planning for that. So those institutions are more affected. And the private institutions, they were having a rapid improvement because they wanted to establish them globally, and they wanted to have an education which is to be spread throughout the world. So they had some preparation in other means, but not because of having any visualization of this type of situation. So they had certain development in this area, and they could cover up some part of it. But most affected areas are those peoples who are from the economic backward groups, and those peoples are completely shattered, and they have been logged, and they have lost everything that thought to have in the future for their people.
So you brought out two important demarcations. One, you said rich student versus poor student. And you also spoke about government universities versus private universities. My next question is to Professor Gurpreet Singh from Chandigarh University. He's from one of the leading private universities of this country, very reputed, very highly ranked, highly rated. Sir, in your opinion, one of the research reports that our company team is EdTech, we published just some time back, we talked, and where we found, and we did a study about the learning loss impact on the OECD countries, on the developed world countries versus on the developing countries. And our analysis said that, our research said that the learning loss in developing countries or poorer nations is almost twice that of developed nations. Now, Professor Ansari brought a different context, saying that within the nation, there is a caste system inside the nation. So there are rich students, there are poor students, and both of them would have suffered at differentially. What is your opinion, sir? Do you think that there are a category of students who suffered more than the other part of the students who have suffered less?
Well, last March, something came up onto your face, and you see, in other context, our perception of learning from the screen was not there. Our students are brought up in an environment where onto the screen they have gone for the entertainment purposes only. Now suddenly, things have changed drastically, and you have to learn from the screen. Now, so when you have to learn from the screen, here comes the another form of infrastructure, which is basically IT infrastructure, wherein you will see that we have institutes which have very good IT infrastructure, availability of bandwidth, but we have institutes which lacks these basic amenities, and they are not in our tier 1 and tier 2 city. They are at the remote places where the connectivity is also the issue. So they were totally blank in this situation, how to learn, what is the resources available to them, plus how quickly they have to adapt to the new learning tools which have come to their life, that is various type of learning platforms. uh, Good better institution already had learning management system, their students were already aware of that, but there are very big number of students in not only in the higher education, but it's there in the secondary and higher secondary also, which never face such kind of situation and have this kind of infrastructure with them.
Absolutely.
So when we talk about developing countries, this it will always be more, because this type of infrastructure require large investment in a sustainable sustainable way. So it was expected that the developing countries will have more impact with respect to when they are moving on towards the technology, where the investment in the IT infrastructure required to be in very large. So that was not there. So they were not prepared for that. But however, in our context, when we talk about India, see, the best part here is that our faculty, our teaching community is very fast learner. So I have seen few remote colleges wherein adaptability to new platforms, these meeting apps, they all achieved this thing less than 30 to 45 days, and they were operational with their academic year somewhere in July, August, and September.
Mm-hmm.
Although challenge was there, because content which matters, which will be delivered, that content requires a scientific approach, plus the faculty was not so much competent that what type of content to be delivered. But the thing was that by the end of the academic year, this became the routine of our life, and subsequently things also change and the content also change, and I think this is the future now. Everybody have understood, and you will see that a lot of investments the institutions at all levels will be doing now in the technology part.
बहुत अच्छा sir. And so you brought in lots of different ideas in my mind, but my next question is to Professor Ansari, and I'm enjoying this debate because I'm seeing somebody from the leading public university of this country and somebody from a leading private university of the country, and I'm seeing areas that where both of you have a similar opinion, but I also want to see the divergence of views. Professor Ansari, my question to you is next. Now, this impact that you talked about, that poorer students will suffer more than the richer students. Now, ये जो चीज हो रहा है, ये सिर्फ ये कुछ सेमेस्टर्स में जाके खत्म नहीं होने वाला है. इसका इम्पैक्ट एक बहुत लंबा शैडो छोड़ेगा इस चीज का, जैसे हमें लगता है. Now, one of the impacts that I can think about is as soon as campuses start again, जैसे ये vaccination थोड़ा ठीक हो जाता है, and let's for some time pray that the third wave never comes, campuses start resuming and students start coming back to the classrooms. Now, in this classroom, you will face two different types of students. One who has been a self-motivated guy and has achieved mastery on certain topics and subjects. And you will find another category of students who have understood nothing because of this remote format of learning. How does a teacher handle this sort of a crowd, such as a cohort inside a classroom? It's going to be very challenging for them.
Yes, this is a very important issue that has to be taken care of by every sector in the country. But here, Shantuji, I would like to say, when I said that economically backward, my focus was not only in India. And you go through even the European countries and the rich countries that we called in England and America. There we can see that despite their substantial technological capability, even European high-income countries have experienced learning losses and increased inequality in the result of abrupt transition from the virtual learning. You understand? They're also facing the problem, and there is a loss. And they had a very equipped technology. So here, when you are talking about these two groups of the people, this problem is not of in India only. That will be the problem throughout the world.
That's true. But classroom के अंदर में अब ये नया problem चालू हो जाएगा.
Yes.
But पहले क्या होता था सर कि when in the earlier pre-COVID days, you had students where you could draw a median line. Say कुछ लोग इससे थोड़ा अच्छे होते हैं, कुछ लोग इससे थोड़ा weak होते हैं. But classroom is largely an homogeneous mix of similarly talented student, but अब जाकर हो सकता है because of this learning loss, we're saying 40 to 60% learning loss, lot of student dropout, lot of student disinterest and depression and anxiety, ये सब मिलाकर now you have students who are very good and students who have completely completely not understood that topic at all. Now, how will the teacher handle this type of a situation inside classroom? Is it going to create more problems in future for us?
You see that the problem we have discussed now, basically focusing the students, they facing the problem. But we find that problem was with the teacher also. And mentally, teacher was not prepared to have that type of transformation immediately. And even higher institutions, which has been supported by the technology, they had a traditional means of the teaching. I have found that in our university also, the teachers was not comfortable to use PPT in the teaching. They were most comfortable in giving an eye-to-eye contact teaching to the student.
True.
So that is the problem. That was the problem with the teachers also. When I come to your question, when the student comes in the classrooms, where clearly demarcation of the two groups, one with no knowledge, another with something have got, but they also have a certain loss. Here, what we find that there must be a specific programs has to be launched by the government, and immediately a step has to be taken for that. Most immediately it has to be taken. The government must ensure that the teacher must be given a type of the programs for which they must be equipped with the technology as well as with the training of giving some sort of encouragement to those types of the students who find themselves lacking. In the classroom, when we sit, and in the classroom, there are the students, for example, 20 students are there. All the students are not brilliant. All the students are not having all the facilities that is required to have a proper type of the teaching. They are coming from different categories and they are having different problems. So there is a different categories which is available even today in the classroom that we have seen. But we do not left out those those students who are not very good in education. They did not have a proper education. They were not having a proper. We tried to keep them in race with the students who are having a better knowledge. So here also, these teachers must be trained for this type of the problem they are going to face, and government has to take a specific focus to the teachers by initiating a small programs, 6 month, 3 months programs to cope with the psychological and tendency how they can cope with these students who have nothing. And another thing that I suggest that there must be we are having a tutorial classes, and we give a lecture to the students, and we also arrange a tutorial classes to the students. Those students who do not have a problem, they can come and have a clarification of those points. In coaching institution, they say that a doubt classes. They say that, but here that type of the programs has to be initiated, focusing specifically to these groups of the students, you
Okay.
know, and they must be given extra period of time, and,
Mhm.
and, and for the purpose of which they may get energy that no, there is a way by which we can overcome our deficiency, and we can gather the knowledge that we have lost in this area, and we come to the closer of those group of the students who have all the facilities. So there must be a specific planning, immediate specific planning. I said immediately. Only 2 days back, I've heard that an announcement has been made by the Ministry of Education that 30 lakh crores will be utilized for the purpose of the new education policy that is been changing. But this announcement that is made and implementation stages comes, that has bringing so much of the gap, that again new problem emerges, and this gap has been not filled, and another problems become a critical for the situation to overcome it. So here the immediate, I told you, the immediate policy has to be initiated for the teachers also, and to cope with the students and they get it completed.
Very pertinent point that you bring in, and I would want to hear Professor Gurpreet Singh's opinion on this. Sir, जैसे हम जानते हैं, then we know this that human beings learn by doing, learn by practicing a skill set again and again. Now, Indian regulations has held back digitalization of education for quite some time. The regulatory bottlenecks in this country did not allow Indian universities to launch online degrees in this country for so many years, whereas 200 foreign universities are anyway operating in the country doing online business here. Now, the Indian universities never had, so the teachers and the professors, as Professor Ansari was talking about, never had used virtual learning, had never done any sorts of PowerPoint based, I'm talking about largest number of teachers, had never done a PowerPoint based discourse or conducted online assessments. Do you think that the regulatory apathy from the policymakers are partially responsible for the learning loss that we are seeing at this point in time?
Well, sir, you have hit the right point. This new education policy was also a pre-pandemic. So you will see that it was never taken into consideration that prior also we will have such kind of situation where we'll have closing of education institute for more than a year, and so we never thought of it. So now when the situation has come, what has happened now has happened. Now the regulatory authorities need to, they are moving ahead in this step also. They have empowered 5% of the universities as per the criteria which they have laid down, that is NAC and NRIF. They have allowed universities to come up with the online courses. But here I would like to say that, they need to come up, open up more programs which can be, for example, the engineering programs, which can be totally delivered in the online mode with the support of technology, simulating software, virtual labs, so that
internships maybe.
Internships also, so that powered with the the blended learning model, and they have also given now authority of having 40% of the courses to be delivered, can be student can have through MOOCs also. So these things need to be now given support to the university in the form of regulatory mechanism, so that other universities can also come up, and those universities who have already got the online program, they need to be empowered more, and assessment mechanism to be also given more empowerment, so that that this situation, if it continues, which is still now uncertain, we will be in the benefiting situation, that student will be no loss in learning. And this is something which is future, that is online learning. So regulatory body should come up now with more flexibility,
तो
so
आपको
that
क्या लगता है सर कि you talked about so many things that in last time also and now also you're talking about so many things that universities and institutions have started new and they're learning in the process, right? So you talked about the online assessments, simulations should come up. Some universities have started doing online. So the COVID-19 pandemic has started lots of new trends in education for sure and accelerated some of the older trends. जो 10 साल में होना चाहिए था वो 1 साल में होने लग गया. कई सारी चीजें ऐसी है. So in your opinion, Professor Singh, is this change that we are seeing in education or specific to higher education, is this just like a passing shower? थोड़ी देर के लिए बरसात हुई फिर बंद हो जाएगा, or is it just climate change? एक बार हो रहा है तो ये permanently this landscape of higher education is going to change forever. What is in your opinion, sir?
I think this will be, this should be a permanent, but limited to programs which can be offered through online mode with respect to the conventional mode. For example, if I talk about computer science programs, computer application programs, if I talk about humanities programs, psychology, English, we need to identify the programs where online delivery is as good as the conventional.
Mm-hmm.
And student should have choice, whether he should go for online mode, completely online mode of learning, or he should have the one other option, that is conventional mode, which has its own advantages, where you have in the campus you will enjoy the student life also. But for the programs which are core engineering, like mechanical or civil or other program where still it cannot be fully online, there in contact mode or in the campus, student has to be there. But my personal suggestion is that we need to identify programs which can be run as equal as in online mode as well as conventional mode. And I am very happy that previous year UGC regulation of September 4, 2020, the credit framework structure of our education mode, which is we are offering in conventional, open distance learning and online, the credit framework structure is now equal. For example, if you have MBA in our campus, any of the campus in India in regular mode of 90 credit, the same credit framework is in ODL and OL. So this gives student satisfaction that equivalency is there.
Okay.
So we are moving to that part. So program need to be identified which can be offered as equal as in the conventional board. So it will be the student choice whether he wants to have in the campus or totally online mode. And I think then this will be the permanent feature.
Thank you. Professor Ansari, that brings a different question into my mind. Now, you being a seasoned educationist, maybe you should be able to answer me, saying that, sir, every time I heard UGC talking about things like this, credits and frameworks and credit mobility and stuff like that, we realize that they only talk about the academic knowledge of a kid. Whereas that's one perspective of higher education, but the second perspective of higher education is the industry view or employer view of things, where they say that skills are as important as knowledge and academic understanding. Do you think that this online mode of learning is a solution to skill building as well? Or do you think that we need some other format post this pandemic? Will it remain offline in campus or will it become blend? And if it becomes blend, what type of blend would you want to see that?
You see, when you go through the UGC's regulations for the UGC regulation 2017, which was being first introduced by this government, for the ODL, and when we go to the regulation 2020, where they have clubbed it with the online programs, when you go through this regulation, you will find that most of these regulations is something which gives a type of a threat to the institutions. A type of surrounding them in a certain difficulties.
Too many
That
regulations.
look, we are going to give you something, and but that something will be with this condition, and the condition is so strong that it is not giving an encouragement to the institutions to go rapidly to the opinion of the government of having online programs and ODL programs so that it can reach far away and overcoming these difficulties of a pandemic. It is not. So that is what I find that, right? There must be something by the government which guarantees that there must be a quality educations to be there. You know? But on the other hand, the quality education, when it is to be given, there must be some proper planning of programs within the institution itself, how this quality education has to be installed. When you go through this problem of pandemic, you find I'm afraid that there will be a cut in the economy as far as the institutional investment is concerned. But we find that some countries may face a government budget cuts that should jeopardizes these incentives which is government given in the form of regulations. You understand? So here, though there is a necessity to have an online programs in this pandemic situation, but we cannot say that this is necessity only for the pandemic because of the pandemic situation. This was a necessity for the proper educations to the peoples who are having different type of the opinion in mind relating to their futures. You understand? Just now the sir has says that the government is having a completely check on those programs which is related to the engineering. So though that means in this pandemic situation, these people's students who want to have a knowledge of engineering and technology and some paramedical courses, legal courses, the hospitality courses, they drop their study. They cannot go for that. That type of the things going to affect future to the country in this particular direction. If you are having in your mind, we have to bring a parallel education to the peoples in the form of a traditional education as far as in the form of online educations. So proper same incentives and same support of the government has to be given to the institution for that purpose. Online programs is must for it because the institution in my institution, what I find that lakhs of students becomes the applicants in the various courses, but only few thousand gets the admission. What does that mean? These students cannot get the admission, they will discontinue their education? No, there must be a parallel facilities. What the sir says that the student must have in your mind, there is no difference if I am not getting an opportunity to study and sit in the class, because there is another option open in this university where online education is provided. So there is now, as already we are lacking in the online education, we have started this online education very late, and we started at the time where the situation is very difficult in every part of our life because of this pandemic. So a special focus government has to be taken. Regulatory authority has to be very serious that they must give a such type of the regulations for the institutions where every corner of this, every faculties of the education must be given an incentive in the form of online education. Yes,
absolutely.
So as what it is my opinion that the situation now it is that it is imperative that we are not only recover from the pandemic, but that we use this experience to become better prepared for the future.
Yeah.
You understand? It has forced us to think. It has forced the government. Because of that, we find that government said in the beginning, those institutions we are having A ranking will be given the online programs. Then they have only come to the 3.5 scale that those. So that means there is a need to think about it seriously. And though the government is thinking that, I say that they are very serious in the area and they're trying their best to support this aim. Countries need to build their capacity to produce blended models of education in the future. That is what I say. Higher education should be better prepared to switch easily between the face-to-face and the remote learning needed. They must be equally prepared for the classroom standard of teaching as well as the online standard of teaching. You understand? And so the teachers which are been there in the institutions, these teachers may be identified who are more capable of having a classroom teachings, and the teachers who are can be given a chance that can prove to be very good teachers and very good resources for the online programs.
Absolutely.
And clear bifurcation has to be made by the government in the form of every code of conduct relating to the teachers for the online and an offline. Qualification must be different in that area. And the education and incentives must be different, because those people who are coming to the online, they need gadgets. They need other facilities. They must be given training in the not within the countries. India, we are having an HRD teachers education training programs in the campus, and the teachers who are assistant professors who are recruited, they go and having a training, an introduction training for 1 month, and they come back and start teaching. Here, the online program teachers will have to go through the training, which with the countries which is having a very high technological experiences. You understand? And they must be given that type of facility. So here must be very clear that the online teaching and the regular traditional teachings, there every part which is there must be clearly understood.
Thank you so much, sir. That's really interesting. And let me change the track at this point in time, Professor Gurpreet. I just wanted to ask you a different question now. So along with the pandemic, we realized that because of whatever constraint, we excused ourselves from examinations. Many universities did not conduct examinations, and several universities conducted compromised examinations. Do you think that this is going to have an impact on students' careers going forward?
Yes,
Definitely.
yes, definitely. If I say in the Indian context, this is very much bigger. There is a time the education not only skills you, but also you with the knowledge you increase your wisdom. But the pressure which you have, which you feel, which you manage right from your matriculation board examination and your 10+2 board examination, that pressure actually builds you up from the inside, and also develop a competitive spirit among your peers, plus the social pressure which student feels when at that age of 16 and 17 years, when he knows that the percentage which he or she will earn will definitely give way to the next level of education, whether he will have science, commerce, or the medical stream based on his matriculation marks. With that pressure, he studies pressure of social and peer. Further, if we go to the senior secondary, the pressure of clearing the competitive examination to go to the best colleges of the country, the best colleges of the world. So that pressure actually students have not gone through in the last 2 years with that particular bracket of age. So when I come to the higher education, things are more dangerous. An engineering student who will be, in a product making or maybe in any kind of role in the, corporate or maybe in the public sector, he has not even gone through that type of assessment, which when we go for the subjective, although I always believe that when we go for the objective way, that needs more depth of studying, but here when the students have not written anything, has not gone through the examination pressure, I feel that when he will be in the work world, where the pressure of performance will come in the form of achieving targets, or think that pressure he or she will not able to cope up at that time. That quality in Indian student is built from these kind of examinations.
Okay.
Plus, if I talk about more about assessments, even at all form of education spheres in our country, we were never exposed to assessment from online. or online assessment was subject to only the competitive examination by public sector, or maybe the some few corporates, or maybe IELTS or PTE testing, but we never had testing, technology based assessment testing, where a student goes through it. Plus the own, when student at remote places, when there is nobody physically to monitor the student for the assessment part, he's only monitored through a camera. His own honesty, his own ethics actually play a role. But student being a notorious, it comes out inside him that I should do this thing. There are a lot of gadgets available, Google Assistant is there, that is also is into testing with the student community. So I feel since now we are into this thing, I think technology have now gradually evolved. We have very good proctoring, this is available, and now we need to have this thing sustainable.
Very right, very right. So इससे मेरे दो questions आ जाते हैं. पहला मैं प्रोफेसर नफीस से पूछना चाहूंगा, सेकंड आपके पास वापस आ जाऊंगा सर. नफीस सर, so there are two important points that both of you raised. One is students have got a learning loss for sure, and second is there is also a image loss in this case, because the employers will perceive the students as students who are weaker now. They will perceive that they have come without examination, so pata nahi filter kaise karu. What do you think the students should do all by themselves to ensure that they can make up some part of this losses that's going to come up in their careers?
You see, that is very difficult as far as the student is concerned. Even in the normal situation, we find that the students are only few numbers who are so sincere to have the knowledge from the books as well as the knowledge from the teacher. Here they are can have the knowledge from the books because of this pandemic, but the knowledge from the teacher, that is a different thing. Because when we are sitting in the class, when we start teaching, and in the group of the students were 20 or 30 students, we can clearly understand that who are the students who are seriously listening our lectures and can understand what we want to give them. You understand? So here, but when we say the students, what the students can do for this loss, the students are neither having mentally prepared for that, and nor they are will be interested. I'm not talking everyone interested. So here, the responsibility more goes to the government and more goes to the parents.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? That type of the programs, that type of the incentives has to be given to the students. So that because of that, that interest may be created in the mind. For example, simple example, a very light example I would like to give here. Government had started midday meal programs. Why they have started? Because of that midday meal, these students who are roaming here and there in the villages may come to the school for the midday. And when they will come to the school, they will have certain sort of education. You understand? So for that type of the programs and that type of the thinking has to be there in the mind of the government as well as the parents for these students who have a loss because of this gap of almost 2 years with the pandemic. You understand? And that is very necessary. Because we can say that let us forget that there is a 2 years in our life.
Yeah.
And we now start. We can say that. But here, these crores and crores of students is going to be a part of the government country, and not there is some other people is going to fill this gap. These people has to fill, and we cannot left them out. So, a special focus has to be there. These are the groups who has to be taken care of. Because with them we cannot leave them alone, and we say that no matter these groups are not being there, so we'll arrange another groups for that, but we cannot do that. So there a very sincere effort has to be taken by the government as well as the parents part, so that these students who are having a loss in the study, and this loss can be taken care of.
You raised a very, very important point at this point in time, and I would like to hear Professor Singh's opinion on this. So what Professor Ansari is saying is which means that all the students who have had this learning loss will enter the world of work with less knowledge, less aptitude, lesser number of skills, lesser image. What impact is it going to have on the world of work, on the world of organizations, in the world of corporates? How is it going to impact the corporates and the organizations in the future? Because these are the kids who will go and join them. So what impact is it going to have on the world of organizations, world of work, and on our economy overall in times to come?
I think here, sir, when the student is also enlightened with this thing, he is now aware of this thing that the loss which he has, faced, when he will be thinking of joining the work world, he's quite aware that he needs to have the skills, have the fitting into the requirements which are corporate requires. So what at the student end, he will skill up himself, and already students if I say last 1 year students, okay, that they will have this issue because it was seen that it is a 1 year problem. So this particular batch will have this problem what we are talking. But the previous batch, the youngers who were in the third year or maybe second year, first year, now they have now understood that they have to develop a self-learning more and in a lesser time, so that the gap, the skill gap which they will have, which due to this online learning, plus they need to also focus on changing needs of the corporate with respect to change in the learning environment. So at the end, you will see that student will going to cover up this thing. So this, I feel, this is student communities has realized.
So you believe that there are students are taking their own interventions, and people who will take those interventions and upskill themselves or build additional skill sets will have less suffering in times to come.
Yes, yes.
Professor Ansari, I mean, you talked about another point, which is something which is interesting, and we would like to hear your opinion. You talked about failure in government financing in this particular case. You talked about the fact that the government saving money at this point in time in midday meals for sure, because schools are all closed. And is that money possibly could have been channelized to bridge some part of the digital divide? People who do not have smartphones can't afford those smartphones, and hence completely left out of education, completely left out. The people who cannot afford a broadband internet connection at home have been completely left out of education. I mean, they have never logged into education. Maybe there's something could have been done in that case. Do you think that the government has done enough in this case to support the students at this point in time?
No, you see that when you go through the opinion of the government, they are still talking about the new education policy. And this new education policy has been framed before the pandemic. You understand? And when it is framed before the pandemic, neither the government nor the teacher, the students were going to have any feeling that this type of the situation is going to come in the future. So here what I mean to say is that now this new education policy is a good policy of the government, where full concentrations has been there with a long-term programs, long-term programs. Now we do not have such long-term period of time. And we have to come up rapidly, and I can say that the programs with the government thinks to come in 15 years has to cover up in 5 years. And when that type of the incentives the government has to take, then there is a need of more funds. There is a requirement of a rapid flow of the funds to the institution. No doubt, there is a focus of the government in the health sector. There is a prime requirement of the health sector. But at the same time, the investment which is going to be given in the educational sector, that investment is going to give output to the nations in the future in the form of the various economic development, technology development, and other areas. So what I mean to say that the government policy programs which is being initiated before pandemic has to be reviewed. And it has to be reviewed seriously in the area of taking into consideration of the digital requirement of the institutions as well as students. You know, and that one of the questions that you have asked about the education, and that education, the examination is the most important. You understand? So digital programs that is to be started by the government, the examination areas has to be very properly been there designed, which I do not find has a focus in new education policy. You understand? So that something what I feel that there is a need of review of the every programs and policy of the government, and the government has to cut short in the area of the period of time they thought of covering it, and government must give equal focus to the education as they are going to give the health sector.
Absolutely, and absolutely, very, very well said. Said that there are long-term policy changes for sure, but then there have to be some short-term and urgent steps to be taken by the government to take care to ensure that some of these bleeding losses reduce. I understand, Anand, that we are running short of time, but I have one last question for Professor Singh and one last question for Professor Ansari. If you allow us, it'll take not more than 2 minutes or 3 minutes, maybe overall. Yeah. Okay. So, Professor Singh, people tell us, and the COVID-19 has taught us that this pandemic and these type of pandemic may not be the first and the last pandemic that we are seeing, and things like this can come up even in future, right? Because of a lot of man-made interventions. Though the real cause of COVID-19 has to be still found out, but then looks like there could be a lot of human errors, and because of which these type of things can come up in future. In your mind, what are the top 2 things that universities and colleges should be taking care of now so that they're better prepared for any such calamity in the future? 2 advices to them. And Professor Ansari, my next question to you is 2 advices that you would want to give to policymakers so that they can facilitate HEIs to be more better prepared. Professor Singh, you can go first, please.
So my first is we need now, and we should be now digital teachers. A teacher who he should be skilled in following. He will be called as digital teacher. So he should learn how to develop MOOCs. He should be given training how to develop MOOCs, how to develop online content. From the government side also, the training should be there at the mass scale, wherein they should identify first the interested a group of teachers, not only from the public sector, but also from the private universities who are capable and they have good faculty with them. So train them in developing the massive open online courses, because India will be the second biggest, largest in the MOOCs. This is what digital teacher, one attribute. Second, empowering the faculty. Empowering the faculty, when this situation came in front of faculty, most of the infrastructure which a faculty used, that belongs to himself. But now you need to empower the faculty, give them not only the infrastructure, but also training on latest, learning management system, latest teaching aids, which are technology based, so that he should be more equipped and further train the students. And the second thing is good institutions which have already digitized their resources. Now these needs to be brought down the line to the end of the colleges. Whatever the deepest colleges, the connectivity should be there. Government should reach out to. I think connectivity issue is still a biggest problem in the when you are doing online. So connectivity, reaching out to the last man and providing the bandwidth on a very lower rates, subsidized to the student community as well as the institutions at higher level. So these are the things which are recommended from my side, and this should actually move towards the sustainable online learning as one of the options with the student with respect to the conventional way of learning, that is face to face.
Absolutely, sir. So Professor, Mr. Kejriwal should say free water, free electricity, free internet. And that should become on sort of a basic requirement for people. Very well said, sir. That and any institution, any college, any university, any school is as good as its teachers. And equipping the teachers, ensuring that they're well trained and they're well equipped, well rehearsed, well practiced, is the best way to ensure that we have built resiliency. Very well said, sir. Professor Ansari, in your opinion, my last question is, what steps do you think, what advice would you want to give to policymakers so that they can allow colleges and universities to remain prepared? How they can facilitate?
You see that there are in education, as far as concerned, when we say that we are having an education institution, and this is an autonomous education institution, the word autonomous meaning is a different dictionary, and when we come to the autonomous for the institutions, becomes different. You understand? So here what becomes, first the government has to decide about the meaning of the autonomous for the education institutions.
Absolutely.
When we are having an autonomous in our mind that we are autonomous institutions, then in that moment itself, our energy gives a new idea to the mind. Look, this is institutions which has a reputation of autonomous. So we must prove ourselves that being autonomous, we are doing something which is very good to the institutions. You understand? So I cannot find, for example, you see that the government in the regulation 2020, it says that those institutions having an A ranking, there is no need of prior approval of the UGC for starting the program. At the same time, when we started going for that, we find that almost the same thing that we have to do with other, that is being done, has to be done by the other institutions. So where is autonomous? Where is the need of prior, no need of any prior approval? You understand? So what here I would like to say that the government has to give an institutions as certain steps of the flexibility in the area of the regulations within the university regulations, as well as the financial incentives within institutions. You understand? What is the cause? The question is that the GST we are talking about, GST something we think that it is related with the corporate houses, with the business people. But no, the GST has become same type of the important for education institutions. Everywhere we are talking about the GST, even the scholarship which is given for the expenditure in the area of the equipment that is to be purchased for the digital program, GST is attached with that. So that is the question that has to be taken care of. So here what I would like to say that the government must give a proper programs and policies with full autonomy to institutions with a better financial support, so that institutions take a responsibility and give a guarantee to the institutions so they are ready to come up with the new phase of an education in the after this pandemic issue.
Very well said, sir. And this is something exactly the political philosopher from Switzerland, Jean Ricou, said almost 300 years back. Man is born free, but everywhere he's in chains. Institutions are born free. They're called autonomous, but they're completely chained by so many regulations that they can't fly at all. Absolutely, very well said. And government's adequate financing. And I agree with you that unexpected circumstances requires unexpected solutions and unnatural solutions. Government must come back with some sort of an extraordinary financing to education institutions at this point in time, so that they can prepare themselves for any such eventuality in future. Thank you, sir. And it has been a pleasure talking to both of you. Very, very interesting insights. And I'm sure the India Education Forum people are going to have a gala time throwing bits of this discussions over social media. Thank you so much for joining us for the discussion today, sir. Over to you, Brown.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. I think you've already summarized everything, Shantanu. So I just wanted to say, because we have got a lot of policy-related advices and everything, I would want to probably go ahead and conduct something where we can have regulators as well as people like you on board, and you guys can discuss it online, because we have been hearing all of this whenever we talk to vice chancellors. These things come in picture, but it does not go directly to the regulators maybe. However, we keep writing letters and keep doing all of that. So let me try and plan something, because it just came to me. Let me plan something, and I'll definitely connect with all of you. It was great having you all on the panel. And because this was very interesting, what we plan is that India Education Forum will create a material out of it, because there has been a lot of policy related and institutional advices as well. So we will create something like that, and we'll reach out to all of you so that you can give your suggestions and we'll roll it out. So let me get all of that sorted, and we'll come back again. And to the participants, thank you so much for joining. We keep organizing these kind of events. You should check India Education Forum very regularly, and we will be coming out with the recording and everything pretty soon. And we will keep all of you posted. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.